Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County government, politics, business, education, and just about anything else that strikes our fancy. I'm Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, and Compass is a subscription-based website and newsletter where we report on all these topics and more. You can find us at CompassKnox.com. I am joined by Compass co-founder Jesse Mayshard. Jesse, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good, I have to say. It's the first time I can really honestly say that all month. So I feel like I lost half of April just sort of in recuperation, but happy to be feeling good. It's a nice day. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, and we are in the opulent studios of Barbarian Productions where Lord Seth Barber reigns supreme. He controls what we say and how we say it, or at least how it sounds. So, Seth, how are you doing today?
I'm the weather's nice. I don't know. I'm not sure how to follow that because I want to kind of lean into my glorious power that I maintain here, but I also don't want to admit it to everybody at the same time. So I'm kind of, you got me in a gotcha right there. If we record this on Friday, if you're downtown, look out for the bees. I was super exciting on the actual weather front that we had a little bit of rain last night on Thursday evening into Friday
emphasis
morning.
On little bit. It was nice to feel it, but it was gone almost as soon as it showed up.
We need a little bit more of that. It's getting to that level of droughtiness that as much as a sunny day is a beautiful thing, we need the rain.
House Mountain caught on fire this week. That's where we are.
And it was on fire all week. It was just days and days of it. And so we don't want to repeat that whole Pigeon Forge fire mess. And so let's get a little bit of rain in the system. That's nice. We're supposed to, I think they're calling for maybe a little bit more on this coming Monday. I can't remember. I didn't do a good job prepping for the show.
Rainy days and Mondays.
Yeah, we'll take it. As long as it doesn't rain on the 9th of May. Just put that in your back pocket, everybody.
And that is because?
That's because that's when Holaroo is this year.
Oh,
Holaroo.
Or if it does rain, it rains enough for the weather insurance to kick in. I guess we got to get. I'd rather have an event than get the insurance payout. Don't trust me on that one. So
I hear that. Well, that's still a ways off. So, and we'll be talking about things that happened last week in Knoxville and Knox County. There are some new statues at Covenant Health Park that we'll talk about. Justice Knox held its Nehemiah Action. We'll take a look at what their requests were from city and county officials. And then Knox County Schools revealed their proposed budget for next year. Got a 2.45% increase in that budget. So, and that budget is about 2/3 of the county's overall budget. So, it's a big number we'll talk about. And also, early voting started this week or last week, and we have all kinds of things to talk about with the election. So, we'll get right to that. First of all, we'll talk about early voting. It started on Wednesday. 11 locations across Knox County. 3 of them are new. You can go to knoxvotes.org, find out where those locations are. You can go to any of them. Doesn't matter where you live in Knox County, as long as you're registered to vote. And the first couple of days of early voting, as Seth said, we record this on Friday. We have the numbers from Wednesday and Thursday at this point, and 4,360 people have voted in person. We got some another 1,017 early or absentee voting ballots that have come in. So 5,377 so far, 2-day turnout. So 2,500 or so, a little bit more than that a day, the first 2 days. One thing that's kind of interesting is the the party breakdown. The election commission does that because you do have to declare which primary you're going to be voting in, and it's basically a 4-1 margin for Republicans. 4,301 Republicans had voted the first 2 days, 1,076 Democrats. I don't think you can read a whole lot into that, though.
Well, I mean, as we've talked about here before, almost all of the competitive primaries are on the Republican side. So regardless of your personal orientation on broader issues, if you want to vote in a way that makes a difference in the primaries, like literally the only competitive Democratic primary is the first district school board race.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
so if you don't live in the first district,
right,
you won't have a competitive race. If you're a Democrat,
right,
and you don't live in the first district, there is no competitive.
But on the Republican side, you've got a competitive county mayor's race, competitive sheriff's race, multiple competitive
trustees,
the trustees race, and depending on what district you're in, competitive commission races, and then also countywide, the two at-large commission seats both have competitive Republican primaries. So there's a lot to vote in on the Republican side, and people are no doubt continuing to do what we call crossover voting, which means that people who may be, more inclined to like vote for a Democratic candidate in the general are voting in the Republican primary. And you can still do this. And I do think it's important to say that because the Secretary of State's office has put ever more restrictive sounding language on the ballot that you have to sign, that you're attesting that you're either pledging allegiance to the party whose primary you're voting in, or you're a bona fide member of it. And that language is kind of intimidating to people, and I think that's on purpose. I think they're trying to discourage people who don't feel deep in their hearts that they're Republicans from voting. But the reality is there's just not really any enforcement mechanism to that. That is not state law. The Republicans in the legislature keep talking about going to strict party registration, and so far we'll see. The legislature is going to wrap up its work next week, so we'll see if this year's version of that bill gets through. But for now, you can go and vote in whatever primary you want to, and I think people are doing that.
Yeah, and one thing, the impulse to make it more restrictive, like that is, of course, Republicans have a majority in Tennessee, definitely in Knox County, overall, and the theory, I guess, is that Democrats are crossing over to vote in these races in order to vote for the worst Republican candidate, so that whoever the Democrats run might have a chance.
Well, I don't think that's only one theory. The opposite theory is that they're voting for the person who they actually like the best.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going. Is the people I know who do crossover voting? That's not what they do. They vote, like, for instance, a Democrat who wants to vote in the sheriff's race will vote. They look and they say, okay, there's no Democrat running for sheriff. And so whoever wins the Republican primary is going to be the sheriff. So, they look at that and they go, I want the best person to be sheriff. And it's not they're not going to vote for a weak candidate. They're going to vote for a stronger candidate. And, and that works in other races as well. I don't know anybody who crosses over to vote for bad candidates.
Right.
I mean, it's just, but apparently there are people who believe that. So.
Well, and I think the other thing is that that the push to close the primaries also comes from the sort of farthest right section of the Republican Party who don't like the fact that sometimes more moderate Republicans win in primaries with help from people who are not hardcore conservative Republicans.
Right, because I was going to say part of it's like your definition of the better candidate versus like the definition of the better candidate to an independent voter like myself or a left-leaning voter. It might not be the same definition of the better candidate
probably
than
won't be.
The further right-leaning
And I think the
voters.
independent voters are the other people to keep in mind here. There's a good 30-40% of the voting population that really does not identify very strongly with either party, has, just doesn't like the two-party system, has things they don't like about both parties. But in a relatively open primary system like we have, those people can still be involved in helping to make choices about who their local officials are going to be. And so there's a lot of, I don't even know if those exactly count as crossover votes. It's just, people who don't have a strong predilection for a party, but want to vote for the candidate they like the best.
I mean, like I said, I would consider myself a more independent voter. I wouldn't affiliate with a party intentionally. I guess would be the way to put my definition of myself on here. And theoretically, I might pull a Republican primary. I don't want to accidentally incriminate myself on air. But theoretically, I would pull a Republican primary because, as mentioned, I would get a sheriff's race. Traditionally, the county-wide races are going to be won by the Republican. And so if I want a real choice in that one, that would be the one that makes logical sense to me. Or at least get myself in a position where then we do get to the general, whichever Republican. I would rather be challenged with the decision of two people I like more in the general than making a bad choice in one person that I like. And that's, again, assuming that I would like the Democrat against that. And so it makes more sense to me I would rather have the difficult decision of two good candidates than the easy decision of making it a bad candidate versus a good candidate. That's just my take. Sorry.
Well, it's and there's nothing wrong with that, Seth.
There's nothing wrong with it right now.
Not at the moment. No. The one thing. Speaking of the mayor's race, which we mentioned, there was a forum last week that the mayoral candidates attended that both Jesse and Seth had much to do with, and I did not. So, what happened at the forum, Jesse?
Well, first, I want to give a shout out to our producer here, Seth. He put this whole thing together. The forum or debate was sponsored by Barbarian Productions, Seth's podcast production company, and he browbeat all four of the county mayoral candidates to actually show up, which, as we know, not all candidates show up for all forums. And so it was great to have all four of them there. And then, I'll
actually cop to that. I'll admit that I was aggressive with them. I told them I expected them to come.
Yeah,
because I did. But
and you got them to come to Happy Holler. And I think it was interesting to have a county mayoral forum right in the heart of the city. Maybe a good reminder to them that the city is also in the county, and a good crowd. I counted 80 plus people, basically standing room there at Relics. And I was one of the moderators along with Allie Feinberg of the News Sentinel. Very much appreciate her joining as well. And Seth really wanted this to focus on economic and budget issues. And so the questions all did one way or another. Ran for about an hour. We set it up a little bit differently than a lot of these forums are set up because we wanted to encourage more sort of interaction and responsiveness between and among the candidates. So with each question, they got an initial 90 seconds to answer. And then after they had all answered, they each got an optional additional 60 seconds if they wanted to respond to anything that anyone else had said, or if they just wanted to add to their previous answer. Not all of them chose to do that on every question, but it did lead to some actual good back and forth where one candidate would sort of say something in their initial answer, and then another candidate in the follow-up would say, well, like there's important context here that needs to, be given. And they were mostly all pretty civil. There was a little bit of sharp elbows.
I mean, I would have liked to see a few more sharp elbows. This is a big deal. It's important. There's nothing wrong with a little passion in it. Don't want anybody throwing punches, but there was a stage of four people with four very different priorities and directions and how they wanted to do things. And the point was for them to articulate those differences, and that's what I was wanting to focus on when you and Allie and I were working out the question set and stuff like that, is to really kind of let's underscore these differences, to give the voters the opportunity to make the decision on what priorities made more sense to them and how they line up with your individual priorities.
Yeah, and I think that, there were, for those of us who have been following this and who know all of these candidates, there were no real surprises, but I think it did help clarify sort of their particular approaches and perspectives. On the Republican side, the three Republicans, you certainly had Betsy Henderson continuing to make the case that she's the real conservative, the most conservative Republican in the race, the most against raising taxes. She was the only one who brought up any sort of bigger picture partisan issues, saying that she's pro-life and I don't remember that, but she hit on a couple of like national Republican talking points in a way that the other two Republicans, Kim Frazier and Larson J., did not. So she's very much, establishing herself as basically, if you're, red to the bone MAGA Republican, like I'm your candidate. Kim Frazier did a very good job, I think, talking about the issues that she has always been most motivated by, which really have to do with how the county handles planning and growth and infrastructure, which really are sort of among the major issues that the county mayor really has to deal with. And I think, as we all know, Frazier is very well versed in how all of that works. She's been engaged in it for years. She showed a clear mastery, when it came to talking about infrastructure. Everybody talked about infrastructure. They all thought the county needs to find ways to do a better job investing in infrastructure. Frazier was the one who was like, well, if we want to do this, here's how it works. We got to go to the Transportation Planning Organization, and that's how we line up state and federal money. She really kind of got into the details of it. Larson J. Very much presents himself as sort of like the business-friendly candidate, the one who has the most business experience because he started businesses, he's run a nonprofit, and that's kind of, the pragmatic problem solver. That's always been sort of Jay's presentation of himself the whole time he's been on county commission. And that was, he and Frazier did not hit the very strong, strident partisan tones that Henderson did. And then, of course, you had Democrat Bo Hawk, who, you could tell, like, he just doesn't have the background or grounding in local government that the other three have, because they are all currently serving elected officials.
In local government.
Right. And so, he talked in sort of more general and a bit fuzzier terms. But one thing that did come across, he's a labor leader himself. And one thing that did come across in several of his answers was this consistent concern for like the working people of Knox County, and that we need to find
affordable
ways.
Housing, keeping wages in line with.
Yeah, I thought he had an interesting idea that I hadn't really heard talked about before, which was to use some of the county's hotel motel tax, which, as we all know, is limited in what you can use it for. It has to be used to promote tourism. But he said that he thought there was a way that you could use some of that money to help support the employees who actually work in the local hospitality industry, and find ways to, because the local hospitality industry very much relies on a mostly not super high paid workforce. And so he thought that there were ways that you could maybe use some of that money to actually directly benefit those folks, which was an interesting idea. So yeah, overall, I have to, of course, I'm biased. I was there asking questions. But tip of the hat to Seth. I think it went really well. I heard good feedback from people afterward.
I did. On the very technical side of it, I'm a little upset with myself. The stream didn't go. The audio was just not good either on the stream or the podcast version that I released on the Almost Agreement podcast.
The audio was basically fine in the room.
Right, the room sounded fine. It was a little quieter. I don't know. I was inexperienced with that system, but that's not an excuse. I should have put better audio out. This is what I'm professing to do semi-professionally, and I'm very disappointed with my audio on that, so I apologize for that. But there was some couple of I thought Larson's point about selling off some county assets, which is a very interesting money saving / money making technique.
Golf course in particular,
right?
Why does the county need to run a golf course?
And then the one about Parks and Rec I thought was kind of interesting too, and it got me thinking about a few different things, because how much money Parks and Rec spends on programming versus facility maintenance and upgrades to the park proper. I thought was one that hadn't got a lot of people to like. That's not something
it was
people
a
talk
specific.
about a lot.
Well, and that was the question that we had actually provided to them ahead of time, asking them to identify specific places in the budget where they might make cuts or reallocations. And you ask a specific question, you can get a specific answer, and we got some.
But
specifics.
from one of them, for the most part, everybody did a pretty good job dodging the specificity of that question. But Larson did pick that one out, which I thought was an interesting take because, like, again, just there in Happy Holler, it's been in conversation a little bit is about selling off the old Sears building there, getting it off the county asset list. Which me as a business owner down there, I'm excited to make that into something publicly used, not publicly owned. But I think it was an interesting subline of things that has not been a forefront of conversation that I enjoyed getting to hear some of the ideas on some of that kind of stuff too. But that is available on both the Almost an Agreement YouTube channel and the podcast version of it. And again, I apologize, the audio is not great.
Well, shame on you. Shame.
I did. Indeed.
Well, in more election stuff, we had that dealt with the mayor's race. We had a sort of endorsement that came out last week. Former Knox County Mayor and current Congressman Tim Burchett posted a video on X where he discussed who he was going to vote for mayor, although he didn't name names.
Yeah, he did a lot of throat clearing about, I don't usually like to make endorsements in primaries and et cetera, et cetera.
But I'm going to vote for the only person who did this one thing.
Yeah.
Who I don't know their name.
Yeah. He said he's going to vote for the candidate who is committed to not raising our dadgum taxes.
He did get the dadgum word right
there. And he also got his favorite phrase about raising taxes and how he didn't say who does this, and I don't know who he's talking about, but he said that people promise to raise taxes, and then they're going to pave the roads and put money into schools, and I don't know anybody around here who's then gone ahead and gone elected him, raised taxes to do that. But hey, but he said that that always happens, and our streets should be paved with gold, and all our kids should be Phi Kappa Alphas, and so, anyway, it is unique way. He said all this, but as I said, he said, I'm going to endorse the person who is not going to raise taxes. Well, almost immediately, and we'll talk about this, the timing of this in a second, Betsy Henderson sent out a press release saying that Burchett was endorsing her, and because she is the only candidate who has said, I will not raise taxes.
In fact, just a couple of days before that, she had put out a video of herself signing a no new taxes pledge, which I think was just a piece of paper. That she made up this pledge and then signed it with a flourish. So yeah. I wonder if she's sent copies to Larson J and Kim Frazier and to give them the opportunity to sign. Anyway, and to be fair, she's right about that. Yeah.
She is the only person who has said categorically, no, I will not raise taxes.
Right.
Jay and Frazier are a little more measured because they know the county where the county finances are, and they're kind of, well, we're going to take a look at things and see what we need to do.
I think they've both said we don't think there should be a need, but also, and Jay said this again at that forum, that also the county needs to have an honest discussion about its needs and its revenues. And by saying that, he's kind of implying that the county has maybe tended toward dishonest discussions about this, and it's kind of implying that to just blanketly say I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z is dodging that honest conversation.
Yeah, and he's the one who has really hit on that need to have an honest conversation, and the county's finances are
tight.
Yes, tight is the best way
tight
to put
and
it.
Getting tighter.
Yeah, and there are things that already the county can't do.
Yeah, a lot. There's a lot of things the county can't do.
For one thing, they basically can't borrow any money for a while, because as we've talked about before, the debt, the amount of money that they're going to be able to devote to debt service is running out,
creeping up to $100 million a year in debt service.
Yeah, and they don't have any more reserves. The reserves are running out. And also, I mean, one of the things that they talk about infrastructure, and you talk about maintenance. The county, Jim Snowden, the engineering public works director, says that you've got to, they need to pave about 100 miles of road every year, just to keep up with the maintenance. To keep
right, not even building anything.
This
new.
is not building new. This is just paving what needs to be paved. But they can only afford to do about 40 to 50 miles.
Right. So every year you're falling another 50 or so miles
and adding
behind.
miles and adding new miles for new neighborhoods and new places that are coming in the county.
Yeah. So it's
and that's not even talking about every year the demand from the sheriff's office for increased for salary increases, teachers wanting salary increases, like all of those.
They actually have mandated to have increases for another year.
Yeah,
because they have to get to 50,000 a year as base salary.
as a minimum. Yeah.
So I have a quick technical question, because this always confuses me when it's talked about. Is so the county is obliged by state law to not run a deficit. They have to, if they have to raise taxes to pay their debts, they have to raise taxes by state law. So, like, how would that work if say a Betsy wins and she vetoes a tax increase, even though the commission is putting in a tax increase to deal with the state law requirement?
You just start cutting. And this was another thing that came up in that forum. The actual areas of the budget that the county mayor has jurisdiction over, if you want to say I'm going to make cuts, is pretty small, because the county mayor does not have direct supervision over how either the school system or the sheriff spend their money. And so even though it's like a $1.2 billion county budget, the direct control that the county mayor has is only over about $200 to $250 million of that,
and 100 of that is debt service.
Yeah, there's
and you have to pay debt service first,
right?
The first check goes to debt service.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like there's potential for. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's potential for this little spot where it's like, well, whomever the mayor is refuses to raise taxes. They're running out of things to cut. The state's requiring them to raise tax or to pay their debts, and the only logical outcome of that is going to have to be to raise taxes against a promise. Even if the mayor continues to keep the promise of refusing to raise the taxes, is there a mechanism where the state steps in and would force it upon them, similar to the election change we had a couple years ago?
You know who would force them? The people who own the debt. That's who forces them.
I'm just saying, like, it's just.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that is. County commission can always raise the tax rate without the mayor's.
Yeah, and they can override a veto too.
Yeah, but they can. They can always do that.
I mean, that being said, we have a couple of the commissioners that are running out, also promising not to raise taxes.
This is the challenge always with government. When you talk about taxes, it's very popular and has become essentially dogma in the Republican Party ever since George H.W. Bush, to just say we're not going to raise taxes. We're just never going to raise taxes, and in fact, we're going to cut taxes anytime we have the opportunity to. And that's happened at the state level. So, like, among the things that's happened to local government is we get less state money than we used to. They got rid of the hall income tax, for example. That used to provide, $10, $20 million a year to local governments here. And so it starts to feel a little bit fairy tale like, just this idea that, like, well, we should just basically never spend any money on any government services. How low do you want to go with that? Knox County is now a county of 500,000 people, 500,000 people. That's a lot of people with a lot of needs. And, if your absolute position is just that we should just continue to keep cutting our tax rate every time we get a reappraisal and quote unquote living within our means, then we're already seeing the consequences.
That is right.
We already have county infrastructure years and years behind what some ideal schedule would be. And we have had, one thing that Jay said that I thought was interesting, and he's made this point before. He says he's not planning to run for anything else, and that he wants to be county mayor, and to, he says run the county
like a CEO.
Well, yeah, like a CEO. And in saying that, he is implicitly saying what a lot of us know, which is that we keep electing county mayors here. We've had 3 county mayors in a row serve 2 terms each who all wanted to run for higher office. Mike Ragsdale, Tim Burchett, and Glenn Jacobs. Every single one of them wanted to. They came into the county mayor's office. They might deny this, but we all know it's the case. They came into the county mayor's office all wanting to use that office as a platform to run for a higher office as a Republican, either for governor or, in Burchett's case, for Congress. And so if you know that you're going to be running for a future office as a Republican and you're going to be facing a Republican primary somewhere in the future, one thing you absolutely don't want on your resume is having supported a tax increase. And so kind of, reading between the lines of like what Jay is saying, in him saying, I'm not doing this to run for another office, he's saying that, he's promising at least to make decisions based on what he thinks is best for Knox County and not best for what's going to look good on some Republican primary flyer, 8 years from now.
Well, we've wandered a little bit away from the endorsement issue, because what appeared to be an endorsement apparently wasn't. Well, here's the deal. Burchett clarified, quote unquote, he clarified what he meant, and what he meant, he says he meant was, I'll support anybody who says they won't raise taxes. And he said that if Larson or Kim wanted, that applies to them.
Take the pledge.
That applies to them. He didn't say take the pledge. He didn't say that. I'm sure Henderson would, but he didn't. And he came out and said this, I'm not endorsing Henderson particularly. This just applies to anybody. Although the whole timing on that was odd.
Well, so right, and then immediately, so the day after Henderson put out the press release claiming Burchett's endorsement, Burchett obviously got some blowback from various quarters, and then I know that you talked to him, and other reporters in town talked to him, and he kind of did this like, well, I'm saying this, I'm not saying that. The timing of it, like, there was no particular reason to expect or know, for anybody to expect or know, that Burchett was going to make this video that appeared to be sort of a quasi-endorsement, but, kind of wasn't, because he didn't say an actual name. However, he puts that video up just kind of out of nowhere, not seemingly prompted
right at the beginning
by
of
anything.
early voting too, so it's like, this is happening now.
And then immediately after he puts out that video, Henderson's campaign puts out a press release. Now, I've written press releases. I can write a press release pretty fast, but a press release like that, to come out that quickly, that press release was 100% written before Burchett put the video up. Just there's no question about that, which means that Henderson's people knew Burchett was going to put the video up. And so if you kind of back off from that, what it tells you is that there were conversations between Henderson's people and Burchett. I'm sure they were seeking his endorsement. I'm sure that he was kind of, well, I don't like to endorse in Republican primaries because that's a thing that a lot of Republican officials will kind of shy away from a little bit. And so most likely what he said was, what I'll say is this. I'll say I'm going to vote for the person who won't raise taxes. Henderson's people said, okay. They got their press release ready. He put out his video. They put out the press release. Then Burchett gets blowback and kind of says, well, I wasn't exactly, but and I know then Jay immediately jumped on it and said, well, this shows that Betsy Henderson's being dishonest by claiming this endorsement. That's not really an endorsement. And, I see what he's saying based on what Burchett said, but it is also very clear that Henderson and Burchett or Henderson's people and Burchett's people, whatever, obviously there was conversation between them. Obviously, Burchett knew that Henderson was going to somehow use this in some way. So I think that Burchett sounds extremely disingenuous, kind of being like, I don't know why everybody's acting like this is an endorsement, because it was very much framed like it was an endorsement. And Henderson is still essentially claiming that she just put out another press release this morning listing all of her various endorsements. And she's tweaked her wording a little bit, but I think the way she says it in her new press release is it's very clear who Tim Burchett's voting for. She's still essentially claiming it. And, I don't think that she's 100% wrong to be claiming that. I think if anybody has an issue with anyone in this, it ought to be with Burchett and not with Henderson, because I think Burchett's sort of trying to have it both ways.
Yeah. Be clear, a lot of, especially sitting office holders rarely make endorsements in the primaries.
Yes.
It's just very, very rare. In fact, there were people, out there kind of saying that Glenn Jacobs ought to endorse Larson J.
Well, and there was, the other thing that was funny about this was earlier in the week, Henderson had attacked Jay for sort of seeming to imply, he didn't claim, but sort of seeming to imply in a mailer that he sent out about his proposal to roll back the wheel tax. He said Glenn Jacobs is on board with this proposal, which that is true.
That's true.
Jacobs has said he supports rolling back the wheel tax. But in invoking Jacobs in a campaign flyer, basically Henderson's people kind of attacked Jay, saying he's claiming that Glenn Jacobs has endorsed him, and he hasn't. And that did prompt Jacobs to come out and say, I have not endorsed anybody. So they've kind of been lobbying this back and forth. And, I don't know. It's campaign season. This is just the stuff that happens.
Yeah, there's one thing with the Knox County Republican Party that they... Martin Daniel, the chair, sent out a text during the week saying that this group claiming to be Knox County Republicans is endorsed candidates. The party does not endorse candidates in the primary, and they don't. In fact, he said it's against the bylaws. What he was referring to was a group called Knox County Conservative Republicans, which was founded by Eric Wider, the right-wing campaign guru who is representing many clients in this year's election. Lo and behold, the Knox County Conservative Republicans endorsed his candidates, and yes, they put out an endorsement thing. But apparently, a lot of Republicans are thinking that that's the
official
party stance,
Wyatt's a smart guy, and
yes.
I have always thought that it was interesting that he named that group what he did, because it is kind of designed to make it sound like it's affiliated with the party.
It does sound very official.
Not. Yeah.
Anyway, it's election season, and those kinds of things happen. So one thing that we did also this week, we had very quickly on this one, we had we do profiles of the candidates before election day, and we had one on the sheriff's race, the 4-person race. We did that, and one of the things that struck me about it is the 4 candidates there's not a whole lot that separates them.
Right. Rhetorically, they're all hitting a lot of the same notes for sure.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not keeping track very closely, you've got in all these. Everybody has an affiliate or has a past affiliation with the Knox County Sheriff's Office. You've got David Ambert, who's actually still there. He's the chief of detectives now. You've got Mike Davis, who worked at KCSO before going to the federal government, working for the Department of Justice. Then you've got Brent Gibson, who's a former assistant chief deputy, and J.J. Jones, who's a former sheriff. And so they're the 4 of them are running, and they're hitting a lot of the same notes. And I think that and they're you always try to look at clues too about because we don't do polling, so you kind of look you see so and so signs everywhere, you see commercials, you see ads, you see but one of the things is fundraising, and you look at, okay, is this person raising more money than their opponent, and they're all in the same ballpark as far as fundraising goes. It's not it's not extravagant either. That's kind of interesting.
Well, in sheriff's races, really, in particular, sheriff's races, I mean, I'm sure they would all be happy to raise lots of money and have lots of money to spend, but a lot of them really come down to having, bases of support within or affiliated with the sheriff's office, where there are people who will do the door knocking and also talk to their friends and neighbors and say, hey, I know him, he's a good guy. It is, that office and those campaigns tend to exist in this sort of like grassroots law enforcement world, and they really depend on that. I think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is with that. First of all, you've got over 1,000 employees who are in sheriff's office. So you got more than 1,000 people who depend on, that's their boss. They're voting for their boss. Then they've got their spouses.
Yep.
Then you've got their parents. You've got their cousins. You've got everybody else. It's a huge number.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that officers in the Knoxville Police Department, even though they don't work for the sheriff's office, they're very much. It's very much
there's a lot of connection,
a fraternity. Of law enforcement officers. They're going to vote. They're paying attention.
Yep.
They're going to vote. So, but one of the things is, since all 4 of these candidates presumably have bases of support within the sheriff's office, so you've got 4 candidates, 4 bases of support. You can have somebody in there. There is no Democratic candidate for sheriff, so the winner of the primary. The Republican primary will be the sheriff.
Right. Even if it's only with 27% of the vote or whatever it is.
I was about to say, I mean, yeah, we basically, maybe a third of the Republicans who vote will elect the next sheriff.
Yeah.
It's not a third of the overall electorate. It's not it's a third of the Republican. And granted, as we noted, a lot more Republicans are voting than Democrats, but still, it's not. When you've got a 4-person race, is very rare that there's one person who gets 40%.
Right.
This is very rare, and especially it looks like to me in this one, because you have 4 candidates who, I mean, Jones, I think, is probably, kind of get the feeling that a lot of people are like wanting to move on.
Well, he tried to run last time too, and he didn't get anywhere with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can start to, the sheriff's office is a little bit of a black box if you're not part of it. But from the outside, you can read some things about this race. Like, first of all, yes, there's J.J. Jones, who has maybe still some base of support in the sheriff's office, but he's been out of office now for 8 years, and he tried to run 4 years ago against Spangler and did not get any traction. So, maybe not a huge factor. Amburn we talked about sitting officials often not endorsing, but in this case, current Sheriff Tom Spangler has endorsed David Amburn. He is his guy, and Amburn only got in the race after former Chief Deputy Bertie Lyon passed away last year. Lyon was very clearly sort of Spangler's designated successor. And then when he died, Amburn got in the race. And so he's whatever loyalty Spangler commands within the department after 8 years, he is trying to put that behind Amburn. And then Brent Gibson, interestingly, his campaign treasurer is Russ Frazier, who is County Commissioner Kim Frazier's husband and his former head or whatever his position was with the Knox County Rescue Squad. And he knows a lot of people in the law enforcement area, and the Fraziers have been sort of also involved in the sheriff's office from a slightly different angle than Spangler. So there's another faction there.
Yeah.
And then you have Mike Davis, I think, kind of pitching himself as sort of the most MAGA of the four. It's a little bit hard because they're all like very much talking law and order. They're all saying, yes, they want to be strong on cracking down on immigrants and so forth. So it's a little hard to tease out sort of like who's the most kind of right wing of them, but that kind of seems to be the lane Davis is angling for. So you can see some differences between them. The thing that's hard to know is just like how big are any of those factions? How big are any of those bases?
And like you said, it's a black box, so it's not readily apparent. I mean, sheriff's deputies aren't going around with campaign buttons on their uniforms. So it's not like you can.
They're very much not supposed to do that. Yeah.
So it's not. You don't know where that support is. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think that Jones is probably the least likely to emerge as a winner. But like Davis, for example, he's married to Elaine Davis, the state representative. Yep. And he is he's been away from the Knox County Sheriff's Office for a long time. And is he counting on the people who aren't connected to the sheriff's office directly to support him,
right?
And
tapping into it because Elaine Davis is another. She was an Eric Weider candidate, kind of trying to tap into that pool a little bit.
And you're right. I mean, these as far as their what they're saying is very, very similar. I mean, all of them are for varying degrees saying that we would like to expand our 287G program to be.
On that, I have a little bit of breaking news that has passed in the House and Senate and is going to Governor Lee's desk now. So it doesn't matter if they want to or not. If the Governor Lee signs that, they will be participating.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that bill requires the task force model.
Yeah.
Ooh,
there's two different 287G programs. Knox County already participates in the jail model.
Right.
I'd have to look at that bill, but I'm not positive that the bill says they have to do the task force model because that would be an unfunded mandate because it would require law enforcement to proactively do immigration enforcement.
I
but there's no
money
right. that comes with it.
Yeah,
you're right. This one is for the detention, which we're already doing. I'm sorry, I should have brought that up.
They already do that. They already if someone is arrested and they go to when they process through the jail, they go ahead and check to see if they're here legally or not. The task force model enables enables local law enforcement to go out and actually apprehend people.
Yeah, to do the thing
streets
that Spangler, because the 287G program, the jail model that we already have, has been criticized by immigrant advocates and so forth over the years. And one thing that Spangler has always said about it is, well, we're not going out and rounding people up. It's just when people come to the jail being charged with some criminal offense, that's when we do the check. The task force model would be, we are going out and rounding people up.
We're going to Home Depot.
Yeah.
We're going to, we're going to the taqueria. We are going we're going to be hanging out. Could be hanging out outside the schools.
Sure.
Could be. Because sheriff's deputies
like all the things that ICE does, it would enable the sheriff's office to do. But it wouldn't provide any money for them to do it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that most of the sheriff's candidates are talking about. Is, we don't know if we can afford to do that. Yeah. Would love to do it, but don't know if we can afford to do it. Anyway, so it will be, I think to me it's going to be interesting because I don't have a good feel on who will emerge yet.
I'm not sure if anybody does.
I hear a lot of I do hear people talk about Ambert a lot, but not to the extent where I would say he would be the favorite.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's that'll be most of our election stuff from last week. We'll talk about of course, we'll be continuing to cover it next week. So, in the coming weeks. So, one thing that did happen last week with the start of early voting and all the election stuff going on, it could have been easy for people to overlook that school superintendent John Roswick unveiled his budget proposal for the next fiscal year at a community meeting in the Summer Place boardroom in downtown Knoxville. He is proposing a $717.7 million budget. It represents a 2.45% increase over the current year's budget of $700.5 million. He's taking new revenues, like $700 million or so of new revenues, and plus other money that they're shuffling around. Maybe some of it's cutting jobs in the central office. To put $41 million of what they call new investments in the system. A lot of that is for teacher raises and all employees get raises. Teachers would certified educators would get a 2.5% increase. All other employees would get 2% increase, and that's one of the things that they emphasize a lot is pouring resources into the classroom, and that's a theme that they hit on quite heavily at that meeting last week. So now this is as you talked about, this is a portion of the budget. Of course, it gets incorporated into the overall county budget. The school board will be voting this week to whether to approve it or not, and then it goes on to the county mayor's office for incorporation in the county budget, and basically they can't touch it. Once it gets out of the school board's hands, it's
the mayor can always he can accept the full proposal, or there is a state law having to do with maintenance of effort, which means that basically the county has to fund as a baseline whatever the school budget was last year. And as you say, this budget is only a less than 2.5% increase. So theoretically, like a county mayor could say, well, we're not even going to do the 2.5% increase. We're just going to do but that's such a small amount. I think what's notable here is that it is such a small amount. I mean, a 2.45% increase is tiny. That's got to be one of the smallest increases in recent history in the school budget. And of course, it follows by just a few years the largest one-year increase that they had when the state redid its funding formula a few years ago. They got a big jump. But at the time that they got that big jump, school system finance officials said, well, this is nice to get this big jump, but if you look at what that new state formula does, it did reset the baseline higher, but then it promised very little in terms of ongoing increases from there, and that it wouldn't take long. If you go enough years of having just 2.5% increases, you're going to eat up that big jump pretty quickly with inflation. I mean, I'm not sure where inflation is going to land at the end of this year, but this is barely an inflationary increase.
Right.
Never mind adding anything on top of that. And that has to do with the fact that, I feel like it's 45 to 50% ish of the school funding comes from the state funding. Go ahead.
49.
49. There you go. And so what this represents is that they're getting like almost nothing as an increase in their state allocation this year. And then, as we've talked about, the rest of that money comes from local funds, and the county budget's super tight. And so they're getting almost nothing in an increase from the county, which means that the school budget is going up by almost nothing.
Yeah. Correct myself, 48%.
Okay, yeah, but that's where it generally
1% that's not state or local, that just comes from somewhere. So,
right,
and one of the, of course, this is just the operating budget. There's more to it. There's the nutrition budget, which is separate from
right, and is mostly federal money.
Mostly federal money. It's coming up, and there's also the capital improvements budget, and that is going to be that's where the school system has an impact on the county's debt, which we've talked about. There's not much going on in it, because they're already building the Farragut elementary school. In fact, they just funded the new K-8 school that's going to be in the Mechanicsville, Beaumont area, the old rural high school above Western Heights. That's going to be the location of it. And they do have one other big thing coming up, but it's on upcoming years. It's going to be interesting. And it really was the candidates for school board in the South, in District 1, the South, or
District
9, excuse me, which is South Knox County. Haven't really talked about it, but they're going to be doing a comprehensive review of the schools in South Knox County, just like they did a review of the schools in Mechanicsville, Beaumont, West Haven, Lonsdale, that area, to come up with solutions for crowded classrooms, aging classrooms, those kinds of things. There's a lot of old schools in South Knoxville, South Knox County. So that is something that's on the horizon that they're going to be planning.
But it's
for.
probably going to have to wait for anything significant to happen, because they have these other things to pay for.
If they end up having to build or deciding to build something new, that will still be out there a few more years, because there's just nobody's going to add $60 million to the debt for a new school, and the debt is, it's shared. It's not the school doesn't have some magical pot of money where they can just go and raid for that and not have an effect on the county's overall debt service. So anyway, that budget is, there wasn't a whole lot of very few people at the meeting.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a whole lot of, obviously this wasn't a school board meeting. This was a school system administration meeting. So there wasn't any discussion among school board members about the budget or anything. That happens next week, or this week. A couple other things that happened recently. We had the annual Nehemiah Action, which is a gathering of faith-based organization members in the who are members of Justice Knox, the social justice group, and they do this every year. They get together and they make a requests or demands, depending on how you look at it, of local officials. This year they are asking the city to move forward with the micro transit program and fund it. Although the city CAT is conducting a study of microtransit, and what microtransit is, for those who aren't familiar with it, like me, now is it is a way. It's kind of a way to take people from their homes or wherever to a bus line. It doesn't take them to their ultimate destination, but if people are of limited means who live 2 miles from a bus stop, they can call the service. The service would pick them up, take them to the bus stop that's on the bus line that would take them where they need to go. The city is looking at that and how to fund it, of course, and all that. So that was an easy ask for them to get, and they got it. And they also were asking for continued support from both the city and the county for the Office of Housing Stability, which provide helps coordinate services for the unhoused community. They that's kind of a no-brainer too, because the city and the county already support them. But that's the issue that really has galvanized Justice Knox over the years, and so it's always interesting because they have a couple thousand members. Usually more than 1,000 go to the Civic Auditorium every year for this. It's an interesting kind of grassroots group that
and I think
powerful.
They deserve a lot of credit for because they've been engaged here locally for about a decade now. Mm-hmm. And I was still working at the city when they started, and they got off to a little bit of a rough start their first year or two. Because their model initially was kind of confrontational. This whole idea of, you kind of establish these priorities, and you study the issues, you establish the priorities, you decide what you think your local leaders should do, and then you hold these meetings, these Nehemiah Actions, and you call your local leaders to account and kind of present these demands to them. The first few years they did that with both city and county and school officials. It didn't go real well because they had done the work. They had their own meetings and studied the issues and kind of come up with ideas that they thought were the things to do around homelessness and a few other issues. They hadn't really built relationships with the people who were in the offices. They just kind of issued these invitations like, come to our... And it was a little bit like, come to our meetings, or like, we're going to make you look bad, like you're dodging us. And so then people would go to the meetings, but they hadn't really had the conversations ahead of time about like, well, what's already being done? What are you committed to doing? And so there was some friction.
Yeah. You've worked in the media relations for public officials. What happens when someone, either the media or organization, publicly asks a politician or public official to do something that they're not prepared to talk about.
Right.
What do? They always say, well, I'll take a look at that.
Right. I'll take a look at it.
They don't commit right then and there.
Right. And that was the problem. They wanted the commitment.
They wanted
come
commitment.
to our meeting and make this commitment. And what I think that they have gotten more skilled at doing over time. Well, first of all, they've built those relationships. They do actually have ongoing engagement. It's not just a once a year thing. Yeah. And they have also become much more sophisticated in sort of understanding where the pressure points are and sort of when you're dealing with local government, where you can have an impact. And it has become a more, I think, fully collaborative effort, but they're still out there pushing. They do push hard, and they're very serious about it. I've been impressed with not just the Nehemiah Actions, but some of the other events that they've held that I've gone to. The level of engagement and knowledge that they work hard to bring to it, and just staying engaged for that long, keeping that many people engaged for that long. That's impressive. It's hard to do. Yeah. You don't see that happen a lot in civic life. So, I think Justice Knox deserves a lot of credit for just showing up and continuing to do it and taking it very seriously.
Yeah, and one of the things that when they really got my attention as far as being impressed by what they do was, a few years ago, homelessness has been one of their big issues from the get go, and they worked with Councilwoman Lynn Fugit, who is nobody considers a wild progressive person.
She's a flaming moderate.
She is a flaming moderate. But she's got some flame, and but they worked with her to develop this idea to commit the city to fund housing for people who have been unhoused, and affordable housing. But and they got they worked with her. They worked with the administration and came up with, okay, this was an ordinance, and it's still in effect for 10 years, $5 million a year has to go to affordable housing. And the city had never made that kind of commitment before, and they got it done. And they got it done by, and here's the thing, they got it done not by just showing up at meetings and telling city officials how terrible they are for not funding this. They actually got down and sat down with them and worked with them to get it done. And that's what impresses me.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we will have another year to go for the next Nehemiah Action. We'll see what they come up with then. Also, at the Covenant Health Park on Thursday, we had had an unveiling. The Beck Cultural Exchange Center and Boyd Sports unveiled 4 new statues to go outside the stadium, joining 7 others that are there. They talked about doing this before to honor African Americans from Knoxville who've made contributions to arts and culture. And the previous statues, most of those were the honored the old Knoxville Giants, the Negro League team that was here in Knoxville. Also, another statue that honored African American Little League baseball players. But this unveiling of people that didn't have anything to do with sports. That was the thing. These are people who made other contributions, like Buford Delaney and the modernist painter. Or he wasn't a modernist. He was, I think, modernist is fair. Sure. Okay, I was thinking he's a little bit later than that, but painter, internationally known painter from Knoxville. And you had Nikki Giovanni, internationally recognized poet.
Ida Cox, the great blues singer.
Yes. So there was one more.
Oh, Ruth Cobb Bryce, longtime educator, artist, and civil rights leader.
That is correct. Anyway, so you can get educated on some of this when you go down there. The statues are on pedestals with information about them. So I need to go down there, obviously, to educate myself on a couple of these the people who've been honored. But this is one of those things that the Beck Center and in working with Boyd Sports, they've kind of insisted on doing this. I mean, as we've talked about many times before, the stadium is in an area that was once known as the Bottom, which was an African American neighborhood that was essentially wiped out by urban renewal in the 60s and early 70s. The Boyd Sports and the Beck Center have really worked to incorporate a lot of African American history into the park, and this is and the Beck Center is really pushing to kind of reclaim the area that was wiped out and transformed by urban renewal with as kind of a historical area, and so that was so this is just another part of that initiative.
Yeah, and of course, people can always ask, well, how much difference does it make to erect a statue somewhere once you've already wiped out the neighborhood and so forth? But if you think about the number of people who are going to come to the stadium every year and walk by there, it certainly has the potential to raise some awareness. Like, oh, well, I've never heard of these people, and yet they were here in Knoxville and close by and to the area that we are. You can't 100% say that it's going to make a difference in anybody's perception of Knoxville or its history, but it has potential to.
Yeah, well, and it is one thing that this is obviously the these four people, they're recognized. A lot of people know who they are. Big Giovanni,
sure,
is and then. But there are a lot of people who don't know them and don't,
or even if they've heard of Nikki Giovanni, they might not know that she grew up in Knoxville.
And then I'm certain that there were a lot of people who did not realize there was a Negro League ball team here.
Yep.
In the 20s and 30s, and there are a lot of people. I mean, think about it. Of course, we've got all these people. We keep talking about growth. All these people moving here. Well, they don't have a clue.
Right. They know nothing about Knoxville.
When they go down to a concert in the Civic Auditorium, they do not know that used to be a thriving African American neighborhood. They have no clue.
Yep.
And because there's no indication that it was, so that whole area just immediately east of downtown, where the Civic Auditorium and Coliseum are, the parking garages associated with the apartments that are on the hill there, that was all, and then the Bottom, which I was talking about, they're basically adjacent to the old city. Those were all. That's where people lived, where they worked, where they went to school, and then they were forcibly removed. And
houses demolished,
and businesses demolished. and a library demolished. And,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that people just don't realize happen. But the Beck Center is trying to raise awareness among people that, yes, this did happen. This is important, and this is a part of our history.
Yeah.
And, anyway, so part of our history was what we just talked about last week is in the rearview mirror. This coming week, we will be. We've got several, couple of public meetings. The county commission will be meeting on Monday at 3:00 in the main assembly room of the city county building to go over their agenda for the month, their monthly voting meeting, which is going to be the last week of the month. They'll be talking about those items or not. It's optional. So there are times that they'll have that meeting and not talk about anything. So, and also on Monday at 5, they're going to have a meeting where they will vote on zoning matters that have gone through the planning commission that affect the unincorporated parts of Knox County, and those none appear to be very controversial. All of them passed. All of them except one passed planning commission with a unanimous vote, and that the one that did not get a unanimous vote only had one no vote. So probably won't be anything controversial coming out of that. But then on Thursday at the Summer Place Ball boardroom in downtown
Ballroom would be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. Tear down.
It is prom season.
Tear down the East Wing and build one.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, the school board will be meeting in special session to vote on the budget proposal that we just talked about. So I'm sure there will be lots of discussion, but my guess is probably no negative votes. But it's one of those things where the administration does all of the financial work, and what do you say? Anyway, that happens on Thursday. There will be other things that happen. Early voting is continuing. We're still doing some. We've got some more stories to do on various campaigns for office. They're coming up next week, including the trustee's office, which is one of the more interesting races. And so we'll have all that next week. You can subscribe to us at CompassKnox.com. You get access to our website and a daily newsletter on weekdays that goes through all the things you need to know to be reasonably informed about what's going on in Knoxville, Knox County. Want to thank Seth, Lord Seth, for his for your work. Thank you so much, Seth. Will Wright, who provided our music. Jesse, we will see you and talk to them. To you people out there, who are listening,
you won't see me next week because I'm going to be phoning in because I'm going to Memphis next week. But I will call in for the podcast.
Well, that's good. Well, enjoy Memphis. So
they won't see you anyway because we don't do the video portion of the show anymore.
Nobody will see me.
I won't see you, and that will be sad.
Well, we can commiserate with one another as when we get together next week here in the opulent studios of Barbarian Productions. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you again next week.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.